For everyone for being here. We've got some questions for Geri from me, some questions from all of you. But before we do any of that, I would love, Geri, if you would just read a little bit of your new book for us, just so everyone gets a bit of a feeling of what's going on in there.
Okay. I don't want to spoil it for anyone.
That's okay.
But I'll give you a sort of a rough feeling where we are, okay? This is a moment, a snapshot, where it's getting a little bit heightened, and Rosie, as we know, she writes in her diary, and she's got to the point where she's accepted her mum is dead. So before she used to say dear mum, and now it's just changed to dear someone. And this huge conservation matter has happened in the island, where like the ice is cracking and all these things are happening that are really major. However, something a little bit more major has happened. She's had a kiss. We all know when we've had a kiss, we all start over-analysing what does it mean. So this is what happened. Okay. Chapter 29, Dear Someone. Dear someone, that kiss, the second chance kiss with Jackson. Stop it, Rosie Frost. The sky is falling and you're thinking about a kiss? Did it really happen? Stop it. We haven't said anything about it since. Don't think about it. Help me. Someone, I've got to get my head straight. The ground is breaking apart, and no one is listening to me. Churchill is too busy schmoozing the Imperial Council. Adults can be so stupid. Someone on this island killed my mum and Colin, and they're just walking about. Questions. Who killed my mum, if Hemlock didn't? That kiss. I wish I could tell my mum. It was electric, and it made me feel like marshmallow inside. My mind goes fuzzy when Jackson is near me. Has he kissed anyone else? Probably. More questions. Does Miss Churchill know who my dad is? Maybe that's what she was going to tell me. Why do I have to wait to find out? Love, Rosie. P.S. Promise, last question. Jackson asked me to go around the exhibition with him. Is that like a date? Or is it just friends? P.P.S. I wonder if he kissed loads of girls. Sorry, I've asked that already. P.P.S. P.P.P.S. Last one. I've now done one Christmas and one birthday without my mum. Blowing out that candle. It's the moment you feel like someone loves you no matter what. Your moment. God, I miss her. I thought I'd choose something that doesn't give the game away, but just, shows you where she's at.
So, that was such a beautiful, evocative piece, and I was just wondering if you could tell us a little bit about the Rosie Frost books and your inspiration for what you included in the stories.
I think we can all say, being here, we're all book lovers. And for those that don't know, this is Jill Santapolo, who's my editor.
Wow.
She's amazing. And not only is she my editor, she is a New York Times bestselling author of The Light We Lost. And she has a new book out called The Light We Found, or The Love We Found? The Love We Found. And I've just started reading it, and I'll tell you about it in a minute. Okay, so we're amongst friends here, and we all love books and music, movies, books. And for me, why did I start writing Rosie's? Because I've always found that books, I always process something, or I want to escape. I want a character to be my best friend. It's a safe place being in this bookstore, you're just like, there's so many worlds, so many adventures that we can tap into and it's a commitment, a series of time. And Rosie, I just felt she was needed. She is needed right now. If we really unpack her, what she stands for, and all the world around her, and there's so many layers to her. Those characters, they are burning in me, but I feel like they're burning within you. All I see is like the world outside and going, yes, there is a Rosie out there, there's a Jackson, there is a Bina, and there is an Ottilie. All of us are in Rosie Frost.
So I love Rosie's character, and I feel like she's so three-dimensional in these books, and you kind of wish she had Instagram or something so you could follow her, see what's going on. Wait, does she have Instagram?
No. Actually, there is a Rosie Frost account. Okay, she's not managing it.
But she changes quite a bit from the first book to the second book. Could you talk a little bit about that transformation and what kind of causes that?
Do you know what? In life, I don't know about you, but there's all different chapters we go through, no matter what age we are, whether we're 12, whether we're 27, whether we're 52 or 72. They're all little chapters. And I think my experience, around the 12 going into 13, 14, I call it the age of power. Because you suddenly go from that feeling of like, I don't belong anywhere, I'm not a kid, and I'm not quite a grown-up, but at 14 you suddenly start going, do you know what? I'm going to claim my sense of self, of who I am. These are my ideas, this is my identity, but that's sort of the underpin of what Rosie is going through, as well as all the outside challenges. And I think that happens again at 27 when you're not the ingenue anymore, and at different periods of our lives. And she is processing that. Okay, this is the age of power. I claim what I feel, what I am.
So I love that. And you have so many characters who are about 14 in this book, right?
Yeah.
They're all kind of coming of age and figuring out who they are.
Yeah.
Are there any other particular characters that you had a story for why you included that character, or what their power was and why it was important?
When each character, I always think they're never black or white. There is always, like, each and every one of us, no matter where we're from, we bring a whole, I call it a hinterland, a history with us, from our parents, the way we're brought up, whether it's in our DNA. We can ask ourselves those questions. But it's almost like ammunition in a loaded gun, and whether our environment is going to pull that trigger on it, or how we're going to behave. Right? And the choices that we make are ours, our free will. Sometimes, they're great choices, sometimes they're not so great. But the thing is, I think human beings, some of us, might look great, and there's a little bit of, I don't like the word bad, but in all of us. And there's a little bit of good in the worst of us. And I like to think that I create characters that are flawed, they're human, and that's really important to me. And so each one has their own arc. So Hemlock, which we can all go, oh my God, he's awful. But the backstory of Hemlock, you sort of go, oh, that's why you'll find out why he behaves the way he does. There's a little snapshot of his childhood. You go, oh, okay, and you see a sensitivity within him, which we all can go, oh, okay, a little bit of compassion. And then Ottilie, you find out, I love Ottilie, and she has all these quips and is really funny and sharp. But actually, take off her Batman suit, and we all wear one, don't we? But again, you find out why she has that shell of protection. Underneath all the barriers, you'll see who she is. That vulnerability, and then the arc. So I particularly do love Ottilie's arc.
She's wonderful. She's such a great character.
Yeah.
But you mentioned something about environments and how your environment can trigger different parts of your character, who
Yeah.
you are. So Bloodstone Island is the environment that they're all on, and it kind of reads like a character in and of itself in these books. So could you talk a little bit about how you created that island and what the inspiration was behind that space?
Okay, so when I started creating Rosie, it always was character first. Always character, because I always think, if you don't care about the character, who cares what happens? You know, it's just a story of the environment, blah, blah, blah. So character first. And then, then I felt, okay, the school, and then giving that personality to the school, the DNA. And then the location, I always knew it was going to have this backdrop of conservation. And there are places that exist that are a bit like Bloodstone. Everything in the story is real. I would say it's enhanced realism. For example, there is an island in the south of England that exists, and I went there, and the climate is slightly in its own, it does have its own ecosystem, and the plants are massive, and the animals there, and it blows your mind when you see it. You go, wow. So it does but then I'll sort of borrow it. I borrow things and think, ooh, I'll take a bit of that, take a bit of that.
So you were talking just about the protection and caring for animals in the environment in Bloodstone Island, and I know that in your real life, not your fictional life, that you're an advocate for animal conservancy and you're very involved in the London Zoo. So what makes this cause so special to you that you wanted to put it in this book, and how would you like to see people get involved in their real worlds?
We can all come from different places, have different accents, look different, okay, but actually, fundamentally, and this is a generalisation, we're all the same. That's what I feel, that our hearts are beating, we all care. And, when you put an animal in front of us, we suddenly feel unified. We all want to pet that animal, we all care. And from an early age, I've always had that feeling. I watched this movie, Born Free. I don't know if any of you saw it. It was about these lions in captivity, and I've always had that care for animals. They're just such an honest presence in our lives, and they teach us actually how to be. So yeah, I see a little ginger cat there. I've always just had a passion for animals. I sort of trust people more when they love animals. If they don't, I'm like,
So this book, in addition to having the conservation piece, it also is a mystery, it's an adventure, there's some beautiful romance.
Yeah.
There's other important topics. There are science, black holes. There's so much incredible information woven into these books. And I was just wondering, when you were thinking of writing it, how did that process work? What are you looking for readers to kind of take from all of this amazing information?
Okay, so if we look out among us, okay, so our hearts are all beating, we all want love. Fundamentally, we have that commonality. However, we all have different interests, and what's going to, touch one person might not strike a chord with another. But they're all different layers, and I'm a curious person, so I'm interested in lots of things. I look at there's so many books here, and I think, oh, I'm sort of curious but lazy. So I want to know, but I'm a bit like, oh, just tell me. I just want to. And so I do like that process, that within a story, and it doesn't lead it, it's just like the sort of texture to it, that there is I'm a bit nerdy when it comes to information, that I think, okay, I'll do my best to give it texture. So the information, the backdrop, for example, there is a mention of black holes. To make sure that it's correct, turn the volume up a little bit. So I will research, for example, I did speak to, oh my God, I spoke to these scientists, and about 5 of them trying to explain to me fusion energy, because we're all obsessed with clean energy, and so I'm not particularly a scientific person, and I'm like, can you say that again? And getting them to explain it to me. But then I think, can I be a conduit between, the scientist and the every person? Do you know what I mean? So it's digestible, and that's sort of like, I would say, the vitamins in the real story. But it doesn't. If you're not interested in it, then it'll go over your head. For me, I always think, okay, if you are going to be daring and generous enough to, commit to picking up a book, I'm going to do my absolute best that you can't put it down. That you can't put it down because you're going to want to know the question. You want to know the answer to the question. To grab you by the, the throat. Like, okay, what happened? So if that's all you want is some escapism and page turning, because I'm a reader too, so I try and please the reader that experience. It's such a commitment to pick up a book these days and go, am I going to stick with it when there's so much so much out there.
Yeah, and I think anyone who picks up your book will find something in it because there's so much.
It's like a salad.
Yeah, I learned a lot. I learned a lot about whales.
Yeah. Did you?
Right.
I actually did research about whales do speak. Yeah. That's sort. There are sort of little tiny bits in the story. They're not the forefront.
No, but they're exciting when you find them out, and then you tuck them away in your brain, and you're like, oh, now I know that. So another thing that is a thread through the first book and this book is that Rosie is a songwriter.
Yes.
And I know that you also wrote music specifically for this book, for this series. So can you tell us sort of how that came to be and why you wanted Rosie to be a musician and why that was important to you?
Okay, so before I went into music, I studied English literature, and I remember writing these essays and doing quite well. The teacher was giving me really positive feedback. But even before then, I was writing little poems. And so when I went into music, for me, when you write a song, that's like a coffee shot. It's like still a story. It's just a short story. It's making you feel something. And a story is just a meal version. It's taking you on a journey. But I feel that it wouldn't be nice if you could have a 360 experience. So it's just for us that you're gonna get the story, but also you're gonna get the feeling, the song. The song that's in book 2 is a song that Jackson sings when they're on the ice. It's me singing it, but it's actually a song that he sings called Older Now, and it's just processing all the things that we've learned and the things that we lose along the way through our own mistakes. But I just, I feel like give it all to you, but just in our club.
That's such a beautiful scene too, when he's singing.
Yeah, I love that scene.
So cinematic.
Yeah, and the first kiss.
So you were just talking a little bit about writing, songs, and I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the writing process for this book. So you had an idea, and how did it go?
I've learned, you might be able to tell me, there's 2 types of writers, and they say it by the seat of your pants.
Yeah, pantsers or plotters.
Pantsers or plotters, right? I didn't know this existed, and I would say book 1, I was how would you say pantsing, which means I was just just going as I went along, and then I had to fix it afterwards, going it's like a surgeon saying okay. But then other writers said to me it's much, I wouldn't say it's easier, but it takes a bit more technique. Plot, is like structure, and it's like a skeleton of the body, and so book 2, that's what I did. But what it means is that before you even hit the page, you've done loads and loads of, your daughter's down there, she was waving. Laura Jane, hi. Hello. So basically, I would say book number 2 was much more, I structured it. I did the work before I got to the, to the page. And that takes a little bit more patience and technique. And I would say I'm quite impatient. I just want to get to the good stuff. I just want to write the love scene, or I just want to. But actually, the technique supports the talent, the creativity, I think. And it's like holding you up, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you can't deviate from that, I'd say. And then I do a lot of research before I even get to that place. And then, you make a date, phone outside the room, it's got to be outside the room, it's a killer. If you have a phone there and it starts going off all notifications, forget it. It's so distracting, you pulled out and that's it. I would say just make a date, okay, so for this morning I've already started on number 3, and I was thinking, I'm a bit tired. I thought, just go for it anyway. And so even if I don't feel like it, just commit to a little bit. Normally I would say when I'm really going for it, it's like 3 hours in the morning, and then after that my mind is a bit bored. And then, but sometimes I've just written in the middle of the night. That graveyard scene in book 1, I remember getting out of bed and thinking, I just felt compelled to just write that bit.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It's always in your head.
Yeah, it's always in your head, and you can sort of feel it and flush it out, and then you feel better. It's like putting a cake in the oven, you just go, okay.
So you just gave everyone a hint that there's going to be a book 3, so do you want to say any more about that? What's next for Rosie?
So I think in my mind, when I started Rosie Frost, I always knew her ambition was always for a trilogy, and I always saw the ending of what it was, and this climactic resolve that we all feel satisfied and go, okay. And I'm not going to go into the detail of how we get there. I don't want to spoil
Too much of a spoiler?
Yeah, I don't want to spoil it.
Too much of a spoiler?
Yeah.
We'll skip that one.
Yeah.
I actually now I'm going to switch over to audience questions.
Okay, amazing.
So this is for some of the people who are here.
And it's so nice to see you all. It's really lovely that, you've all showed up, so thank you.
So this question is from Carlos A.
Yeah.
And he said, are there any plans for a Rosie Frost movie?
Wow. There are some exciting plans, and I'm very excited to share them with you at some point.
Is that a guess?
Okay, so this is from Graham, who said, I've traveled from the UK to see you as you are such an inspiration to me. Who is your inspiration?
I think, oh wow, that's really nice. And the whole point, I think, actually, if anything I do or any creative outlet that I do, there always is that under the DNA of it, the genesis of it. Because I always think, why are you doing this? Why? I always try and inspire others at the same time, the way I've been inspired by, many different things out in the world, whether it's movie, books or music, artists. So that is amazing if anyone's inspired by what I do, even if it's the fact that you go, oh, she's had a go at going her dream. For me, this is such oh my God, a dream come true that I get. Imagine I want to write these books, and now I'm on my number 2 book. This is amazing, and everyone's showed up for me, and to have that recognition, it's gorgeous, and I'm incredibly grateful. But I can get inspired from the ones that have gone before, or the ones that are growing up. You take inspiration from all sorts of walks of life. Your little daughter, amazing. Just a spirit of someone else that's just going for it. You think, yeah. I always think, oh, if I can see it, I can be it. And I watch other people fulfill their passion or their dream. That's a wonderful thing to see.
Speaking of passion and dreams, this is a question from Lindsay, who wants to know if you ever had a dream to go on Broadway, and would you perform on Broadway?
Oh, me personally?
Yeah.
Oh, do you know what? It looks like a lot of hard work. Once I did this thing, it was just for charity, and I did the singing in the rain. It was just like a little bit, right? And so I was working with this really amazing guy. He was that ballet dancer, that really famous one that did Swan Lake. Adam Cooper. Well done, thank you. Thank you. Okay, and it was singing in the rain, and I thought, when you go on, when you do a Broadway thing, you'll really have your part. You're one of many moving parts, and you really have to really show up and be on time. The discipline of it is massive. You are part of one big moving machine, and respect to all of those actors and behind the stage that do it. But I have to say, I like being the painter more than the paint. If I'm really honest, I don't mind being a little bit, I've done some acting. I think it's amazing to be able, and it's very vulnerable and brave. But I definitely like doing that more than the other way.
That's a great point. All right, so this one is from Roseanne, who wants to know, what about Rosie as a character do you relate to the most?
What do I relate? I think sort of the vulnerability of not knowing sometimes, when you think, I'm trying to figure it out. Sometimes I think I don't know the answer. There's so much out there. If I'm really honest, there's so much information out there, and you think, and then really owning your instinct. We have every answer within us. We do, but then trusting it, and then your own confidence goes up when you do. I find that process, and actually, I found myself using the Falcon Queen rules in my own life. I'm like, okay, what would Rosie do? So I'm like spoon feeding it back to myself. Have courage, show up.
Gotta get those bumper stickers.
Yeah, exactly. That's the whole point.
So Svetlana has a question, which is, what place in the world that you haven't been to yet would you like to go to, and why? I know you've been everywhere.
I've been fortunate enough to go to many places, and I'd like to go to Alaska to see the polar bears, and I'd like to go to the Galapagos Islands. That sounds amazing too. There's many beautiful places in the world, but New York's got its thing.
This is from, it says it's from Eleanor and Florence and Danielle.
Okay.
Who said, who were your favorite authors when you were a child?
I think we have this in common, a lot of you. I love C.S. Lewis, The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. I've actually got one of his original books.
Amazing.
It's amazing, and I remember reading that book, and it just transported me. And that's a job well done. I think that's what a good book is meant to do, a great book, and it's everlasting. I remember going to, for those that you've never read it, is when these kids, they're wartime kids, and they've been evacuated to the countryside when London is being bombed. And that's a real precarious time. So that was truthful. But then what happens is they're staying in this big house, and they play hide and seek, and they go through a wardrobe door, and they go into another world, Narnia. And it's got a very spiritual values to it as well. But I remember I read that book, and I kept on opening wardrobe doors and going, closets, we call it, going into closets. And it was just but it really made me feel something. The possibility, and I thought that was simple. Also Enid Blyton, the naughtiest girl in the school. It's very English. Yeah.
I feel like there are scenes in books we read as kids that just kind of stick with you forever.
Yeah, they do, don't they? Your imagination is far wilder than anything for anyone.
Yeah. Speaking of books, Ted would like to know, what is the last book you read?
Actually, if I'm really honest, your book. Last night I was reading, can I just tell you, I thought, okay, so I read Jill's first one and it's excellent, a New York Times bestseller. And
She's my best publicist.
Yeah, no, she's really good. And I'm not just saying this, Jill is the most, as an editor, she's amazing, really understanding, but also, you know, we'll call it out and go, actually, this doesn't make sense, have you thought about this? But also there's an understanding, because I think because you're a writer, I have to say, when you read her books, just that it needs to come with a warning. So I start reading last night, thinking, okay, let's start getting, because I've got a couple of other books on the go, right? I start reading it, and by page 12, I'm crying. I'm like, what the hell? I was like, oh my God, I need to take a break. Okay, so I was reading your book last night. There we go. It's very good. Very good. Very sort of raw. It's raw love, and it's sort of a very sort of visceral level. So well done, you. Very good. You made it. Come on.
It's definitely a mutual admiration society, because I think Geri's the most brilliant writer. So.
Thank you.
All right, so our next question we have here is from Bryce. How does Rosie embody your ideologies around empowerment, strength, and perseverance?
How does she
Embody empowerment, strength, and perseverance.
How does Rosie do that?
Yeah.
I think, you know, she takes us on a journey, just sharing. What I like about her is that she doesn't have the answer, you know, at the beginning. I think she's a modern day hero. She's not airbrushed, that actually she's flawed. She's like all of us. She struggles and goes, is this the right way? She's a reluctant hero sometimes. She's like, oh, okay, I'm just going to have to show up and do my best. And also, what I think is I really thought was important, and she really shows up in book 2, is the darkness in her, which is in all of us. Okay, so she wants revenge. I call it the type ricochet of revenge, and Bina calls it out. Okay, so I would say, you hurt me, so I'm going to hurt you back. And then that person hurts me back again, so it goes ping pong, like this. And she acts out on that feeling, I want revenge. And then the feeling afterwards, the sort of like, oh, this doesn't feel that good. She's honest about it, but she still acts out on it. And I think actually that's, in a way, that we need to show that side sometimes. None of us are perfect, and we need to. It's all research, isn't it, as we grow.
And that's why she feels so three-dimensional, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I thought it was really important to show that this girl isn't like, oh, it's all hearts and flowers. No, it's not. Sometimes we have dark thoughts, and it's whether we act on them or not.
And if we do act on them, if we take responsibility for those actions.
Yes.
Which I think is a big part of the book too.
Yeah. I think Hemlock's really funny, the way he reacts. You guys haven't read it yet, but when you get to the bit where she tries to punish him, and then how he responds back, a bit in the office with that. Okay, I don't want to spoil it. Anyway, it's funny. And I make myself laugh sometimes with what I write. I'm like, when you read it, there's a different layer. On one hand, it's just an action scene and murderous, but then some of you might think, oh, that's a bit like Britney Spears. There's different sort of humorous levels to me.
They're great. They're great. There's a lot of laughter in these books. We have time for 2 more questions. 2 more questions. Okay. I'm going to ask one more audience question, and then I'm going to ask one question that I didn't ask before, and then that's where we're going to go here. Okay. So this is from Oscar. It says, hi Geri, my name is Oscar from Australia, and I'm thrilled to be here in New York with you. Do your children read your books? And if so, what feedback have they given you?
Oh, it's so nice. I'm really grateful for the support I get from my family. And I always, not always, but certain times I do run past, bits. I have to say, there's jokes. There was jokes in book one that my daughter wrote about, I was saying to you before, what was it, on the guacamole, Ottilie. Some of her jokes are from, my daughter helped me with them. And there's one in, just sayings, there's oh, go sit on a cactus. Just sometimes I just borrow it. I'm going to use that, thank you. So I'm truly grateful for my family's support, and they do really support me.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so my last question before we switch to the photo portion of the evening, the afternoon, is I know you read the audiobook, and I loved listening to you read this opening piece that you read just now. So could you tell us a little bit about the audiobook and what that was like? And there's a rumor that you can do a really good accent from someone from Texas.
I don't know if what people will think about. Okay, audiobooks, there's nowhere to hide. You're in this little room, you're reading the book, you're reading the story, and you try and do these voices. And there are all these different characters. There's Mary Curie, Madame Mary Curie, and she's French. She's like, what are you doing? And then you're jumping around. There's a new guy called Ludo Vance, and he's Irish, and he's like, oh my gosh, you've got a lot of, so you're swapping around, and there is a Texan, Akiva, and so let's try and do a Texan. You gotta be out of your mind. Oh my God, Jill. I'm just so proud of all these people coming here in New York, but oh my God, is that just dreadful? You gotta be out of your mind. I had an acting coach. I had an accent coach. I've just thrown it out there, but literally go over it and say, do it again, do it. So God knows what you're going to think. Just give it a bit of colour, diversity. But forgive me.
I've read this book a number of times, and I am still going to go get that audiobook because I can't wait to hear that.
In one chapter, I covered 4 different accents. I was like, oh my God.
It's amazing. All right, I think we're getting the time's up from
we are, unfortunately, but can we please give a round of applause for this? Amazing discussion. So, guys, we're going to take a couple of minutes. We're going to reset the stage. We're going to call you guys all up row by row to get your photo taken.
Amazing.
Again, we have more signed copies of Rosie Frost available to purchase back by the register over here. All books must be purchased before they're brought back into the event space. We'll get started with this photo line.